China develops a coronavirus cure, while the U.S. government targets Chinese state-run media and Chinese telecom giant Huawei. That and more on this week's China News Headlines. This is China Uncensored. I'm Chris Chappell. This episode is sponsored by Surfshark, because you should be using a reliable VPN whenever you go online. The deadly coronavirus has been spreading throughout China, but never fear. Chinese leader and honey lover Xi Jinping has vowed to win the people's war against the coronavirus. It should be no problem for him. After all, he was the first one on the problem, even before, apparently, himself. You see, when Xi Jinping first publicly talked about the coronavirus on January 20th, it was already pretty late in the game. He blamed local officials for covering it up. Blamed the local officials, not the central government. Except it turns out that Xi Jinping knew about the coronavirus at least 2 weeks before that official announcement. The official Communist Party magazine Qiushi published this speech Xi Jinping gave, where he said that back on January 7th, he told China's top leadership to prevent and control the coronavirus. January 7th was 13 days before his first public speech about the coronavirus. That potentially implicates Xi Jinping in the bungled early response to the outbreak that contributed to its rapid spread. So it's weird that state-run Qiushi would publish this speech, while other state-run media have been portraying Xi Jinping as all-knowing and on top of the problem. That certainly has some China watchers puzzled. To me, it seems likely it's the factional infighting within the Communist Party coming to the surface again. Many officials inside the party want to see Xi Jinping purged. After all, Xi has purged more than 2.7 million officials in his anti-corruption campaign. So pushing the blame for the coronavirus cover-up into Xi's lap would be a pretty good way to hurt him politically. I wonder what will happen next. Next time on General Hostility. Was Xi Jinping hiding a dirty secret? Is his mortal enemy trying to expose him? Is it all just a power grab by a secret lover? There is some good news. Communist authorities have discovered an easy new treatment for the coronavirus. Slapping people. Yes, meet the 3 newest members of China's Politburo Standing Committee. Okay, the reason that they're slapping and grabbing and wrestling people to the ground is that these people were not wearing masks. I mean, they probably don't actually have the coronavirus since the police were willing to slap them. Of course, slapping people when they disobey you does have a downside. I know, who would have thought? The way they've gone about it is quite dangerous because you actually start to erode that trust in the government. You want citizens coming forward and saying, I feel unwell. I can't imagine why people wouldn't trust the Chinese government. But if you think slapping people was a dumb idea, there's a new coronavirus treatment that's even dumber. Mao-style social control. Residential lockdowns of varying strictness, from checkpoints at building entrances to hard limits on going outdoors, now cover at least 760 million people in China, or more than half the country's population. Like many things in China, these are unevenly enforced. So the situation can be really different throughout the country or even down the street. And to be clear, this is not just in places close to Wuhan, where the virus first was reported. Wuhan has already been pretty much sealed off. Maybe a Mao-style mass crusade isn't the best way to stop the spread of the coronavirus. But hey, you gotta go with what you know. Like these public shaming campaigns straight from the Cultural Revolution. This guy went outside without a mask. Tie him to a pillar. These Uyghurs went outside. Hang signs from their necks calling them dogs. In these uncertain times, it's nice to see that the Communist Party is getting back to its roots. Speaking of dumb treatments for the coronavirus, how about this one? Blaming the U.S. A few weeks ago, my favorite state-run media, the Global Times, criticized America for imposing travel restrictions from China, calling it an overreaction. I mean, the coronavirus is serious, but a travel ban? That's taking it a little too far. In a completely unrelated story, the Global Times has reported that Russia has banned Chinese citizens, which is regrettable but understandable. What's Russian for hypocrisy? By the way, the Trump administration has designated Chinese state-run media running in the US as operatives of the communist state. Thank you! That is so long overdue. That's actually what Secretary of State Mike Pompeo said. This will include all your favorite Chinese Communist Party mouthpieces like Xinhua, CGTN, China Radio International, China Daily, and the People's Daily. All 5 of those organizations are still free to operate in the US, but the US government now considers them part of China's foreign missions. That means that they will be subject to the same restrictions as the Chinese embassy and Chinese consulates in the US. It requires the 5 organizations to provide names, personal details, and turnover of staff in the United States to the State Department. The news organizations would also need to report whether they own or lease property in the United States. So, does this mean that the US government is restricting freedom of the press? No, these news organizations will still be able to report freely. But now, the US government has officially labeled them propaganda arms of the Chinese government, which they are. But China is also very, very upset at US media, particularly the Wall Street Journal. The Wall Street Journal, I'm sorry to say, has hurt the feelings of the Chinese people, according to China's communist leaders. China has expelled 3 Wall Street Journal reporters. Chinese officials say it's because the Wall Street Journal used this racist headline. But it's an opinion piece, and it's written by a weekly contributor, not by Wall Street Journal reporters or their editorial board. However, a Wall Street Journal editor did come up with the headline. I'm sure the author of the article is very happy right now. The article is basically about the coronavirus outbreak, the cover-up, and the effect it might have on the global economy. Now, calling a country the sick man of blank is actually a common phrase. It was originally used in the 19th century to describe the Ottoman Empire as the sick man of Europe, and then became used for any country facing economic problems. A quick Google search will show that media use this phrase all the time. But in China, sick man of Asia has a long history of being considered a racist slur used against the country and Chinese people during the Century of Humiliation by Japan and the West. It's been used by the Chinese Communist Party for years, including by Mao, as something to fight back against. But it's not just Communist Party propaganda. That phrase was even a plot device in the Bruce Lee movie Fists of Fury. Let's just say, that's what causes the fury of those fists. Now, after that Wall Street Journal opinion piece was published, Chinese state-run media flipped out for weeks, calling Western media racist, saying that China doomers are the ones who are really sick. And the People's Daily said morbid views on China won't cure coronavirus patients. We all know what will. But did the Chinese government really expel 3 Wall Street Journal reporters over a racist headline? It's more likely that it was in retaliation to the US government designating Chinese state-run media as operatives of the Chinese state. It's also worth noting that the 3 reporters being expelled have all been in China for years and have reported on sensitive issues like the concentration camps in Xinjiang. It's just as likely that the Communist Party was looking to throw out some reporters and found an excuse because of the coronavirus. Of course, we don't know for sure what caused the coronavirus outbreak, but some Chinese scientists believe it could have escaped a government testing lab in Wuhan.
Citing a report published by Chinese scientists, the research lab, which is only 280 meters away from the Huanan seafood market, kept disease-ridden animals, including more than 600 bats. It stated that while it's plausible the virus was leaked from the lab and contaminated initial patients in this epidemic, more solid evidence is required through future study.
By the way, that lab is not the Wuhan Institute of Virology. This paper doesn't mean the virus was a bioweapon. It still connects the virus to bats. But, like I've said before, it will be months, if not years, before we know where the coronavirus came from. On that lovely note, despite the Chinese government going for a "we've got the coronavirus outbreak under control" narrative, outside of mainland China, the outbreak seems to be getting worse. Hong Kong has reported its second death, while Iran has reported 2 deaths of its own. Chinese telecom company Huawei has been charged for racketeering and stealing trade secrets. The US government, both under the Trump administration and the Obama administration, have expressed concern about Huawei's close links to the Chinese government and military. A US judge has also rejected a Huawei lawsuit that claimed the ban on its products in the US was unconstitutional. Oh, how cute. A Chinese state-linked company trying to talk about rule of law and the Constitution. And finally, the Sony World Photography Awards website removed Hong Kong protest images. They were taken down because of their sensitive nature. But don't worry, that's not censorship. According to the organizer, the World Photography Organization, they're just temporarily reviewing the photos. It's totally censorship. And that's it for this week's China News headlines. And if you want to view images of a sensitive nature, you should use a VPN like Surfshark to protect your identity online. Obviously, I'm talking about viewing award-winning images of Hong Kong protesters. What were you thinking about? When you go online, everything you do is being tracked and logged by the websites you visit and your internet service provider, and in many cases, by the government. And if you're in an authoritarian country like China, this kind of tracking can put you at risk of surveillance and even arrest. So I recommend you use Surfshark to protect yourself online. When you use Surfshark's clean web mode, you'll be protected from trackers, plus a lot of ads and malware. And with Surfshark, you can connect as many devices as you want. Try it out with a 30-day money-back guarantee. Surfshark has a special discount for China Uncensored fans. Go to surfshark.com/uncensored and use the code UNCENSORED to get 83% off a 2-year plan and 1 extra month free. Protect yourself online today. Click the link below. Once again, I'm Chris Chappell. See you next time.